Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for, well, a high-speed tour of the global pharmaceutical industry. But we're not focused on lab coats and clinical trials. We're focused on the digital revolution that's just tearing through every single operational area.
It really is.
This is not just about using tablets for data entry. This is a comprehensive, full stack.
Yeah.
It's an operational, regulatory, and scientific overhaul.
Absolutely.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really distill the core knowledge of this seismic shift. We need to identify the immediate regulatory crunch points. We're talking that critical 2024 to 2026 window.
Right.
And then we're going to jump ahead to the revolutionary technologies that are defining the very future of medicine, running from 2025 all the way out to 2035.
And if you're in this space, you know the urgency. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher right now. What the sources show us is this clear divergence. Organizations that proactively align with evolving regulatory expectations from, the FDA, the EMA, they are immediately gaining massive competitive advantages.
And that translates to what exactly? Faster approvals?
Faster approval processes, significantly reduced compliance risks. The window to be proactive is right now, which is why that 2024 to 2026 timeline is just so critical for building the infrastructure to cope with this accelerating pace of change.
That sounds like a ticking clock. So let's unpack this regulatory pressure cooker first. That 2024 through 2026 timeline, it sounds like a critical inflection point where all this digital guidance finally gets firm.
It absolutely is. When we look at regulatory strategy today, there are two huge interlocking focus areas that are just dominating the discussion: data integrity and AI validation.
Okay.
For data integrity, we're seeing requirements strengthen across both EMA and FDA frameworks. There's a really heavy emphasis on the venerable LCOA plus principles.
LCOA plus A.
Right.
I mean, that acronym has been the foundation of data compliance forever, but the plus elements, they really complicate things in a digital environment, don't
They do, because you can't just rely on the attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate elements anymore. Now you have to demonstrate that your data is complete, consistent, enduring, and available. Think of LCOA Plus as a forensic checklist for your data.
Okay.
It means the system has to ensure the traceability, the audit trail. It cannot be broken, even when that data is feeding a complex machine learning model.
And that's the crucial part, isn't it? Auditing an AI against those principles.
Right.
Because AI models, by their nature, they evolve, they're fluid.
Exactly.
So how is the FDA ensuring data integrity when the software is literally learning and changing?
That's precisely why the FDA's approach has crystallized. There's new draft guidance on artificial intelligence-enabled device software functions, and it moves beyond static rules. It requires systematic, risk-based validation that's tailored specifically to machine learning systems. It ensures that, training data quality and model maintenance are baked in from the very start.
Speaking of moving beyond tradition, the single biggest shift in the compliance world right now has to be the move from the old way, the painful way of doing things, traditional computer system validation, or CSV,
Yes.
to the FDA's new streamlined framework,
Huh.
computer software assurance, or CSA.
What is genuinely fascinating here is the complete philosophical reversal this represents. And it's a massive, massive relief for the industry.
Reversal.
A total one. Traditional CSV was notoriously slow, bureaucratic, so paper heavy. It was typically, 80% devoted to writing and filing documentation that often just sat on a shelf.
Unused.
And only 20% on actual targeted testing.
So it was just compliance for the sake of documentation, often completely, regardless of the actual risk.
Precisely. The CSA framework flips that mandate on its head. It emphasizes 80% targeted testing and only 20% documentation.
Wow.
This is basically permission for companies to move faster, to focus resources only on the areas that truly impact patient safety or product quality. And this change is vital because it finally supports modern, agile software methods like DevOps that CSV it couldn't handle it efficiently.
The huge shift in culture, not just compliance. It acknowledges that software today evolves, weekly, not annually. But the complexity doesn't stop there because so much of this new infrastructure has moved to the cloud. What does GXP compliance even look like when everything is running as software as a service?
The shift to the cloud fundamentally changes the responsibilities for validation. GXP compliance for cloud and SaaS. It relies very heavily on risk-based methods and this concept of a shared responsibility model.
So you, the pharma company, you share the validation burden with the cloud provider.
Or do, and that relationship needs rigorous documentation.
So it's not just, passing the buck to Amazon or Microsoft.
Not at all. We see major players like Oracle now offering specialized GXP advisory services specifically to help companies define that shared model. The cloud provider handles the infrastructure controls. They validate the temperature control of their server rooms, for instance.
Got it.
But you, the pharma company, you remain fully responsible for the application layer, for configuring the software correctly and for making sure your workflows meet all those ALCOA plus principles. The regulatory focus shifts heavily onto those company-controlled layers.
That focus on targeted risk and real-world testing, that's where the efficiency gains are.
Okay, let's leave the regulations for a moment and look at the how and the what. How do these high-level concepts actually translate into measurable, real-world business results? We've got two stunning case studies here: smart facilities and AI in quality control.
Yeah, the best example of a greenfield smart facility, that means a site built from the ground up with digital baked in, is CSL Behring's massive 400 million plasma plant in Marburg, Germany.
400 million euros.
It's huge. And they implemented Pharma 4.0 capabilities right from the initial design phase through to ongoing operations. They used highly accurate digital twins at every stage to simulate processes before they were ever physically built.
A 400 million investment is it's enormous. It's hard to wrap your head around that scale. What's the business metric that justifies that kind of upfront spending?
The sources are very clear on this. Leading companies are achieving average returns of 15 to 25% on these greenfield digital investments.
Came to 25%. And that return is realized incredibly quickly through accelerated time to market, enhanced product quality that reduces batch failures, and, well, significant drops in operational costs.
A 15 to 25% return is massive, but as you said, the initial costs, like that 400 million plant, are prohibitive for a lot of organizations. Is this digital advantage just reserved for the largest global giants?
That's a fair question, but the principles do scale down. While the facility investment is huge, the core technology, like using digital twins for process optimization, that can be implemented piecemeal. It can be retrofitted into existing operations.
Okay.
The returns aren't quite as high as a true greenfield launch, but the advantage is definitely transferable.
That's an excellent point. Now let's move to the operational side, looking at AI-augmented release testing. This is where it gets really interesting because the performance improvements cited in our sources are just staggering.
They absolutely are. Implementing AI in quality control and batch release has delivered massive operational impacts. I mean, look at the numbers for optimization. We saw a cut in the batch release cycle time by 40%. Which reduces the average release time from 120 hours down to just 72 hours.
A 48-hour reduction, that's a game changer. That means product gets out of quarantine and into the supply chain faster, which is huge for managing inventory.
It's essential, especially when you're responding to spikes in demand or preventing drug shortages. But the bottom line figures are just as impressive. The sources noted the cost per batch decreased by 36.7%.
Wow.
Dropping from $15,000 down to $19,500. You multiply that across thousands of batches a year, and you are seeing enormous savings.
And it's not just faster and cheaper, it's more accurate too.
Precisely. Using advanced machine learning algorithms to detect these subtle anomalies that a human eye might miss, it increased testing accuracy from 94.5% to 98.2%. That boost in quality and throughput is the definition of operational excellence, all driven by that AI layer.
So we have regulations shifting and technology delivering these huge measurable results. But complex systems only deliver value if the people operating them are ready and confident. Let's shift focus to the human imperative, skills and readiness, because tech integration has to be paired with workforce transformation.
This is maybe the most crucial link in the entire digital transformation chain. The most successful case study we found involved a top 10 pharma company that implemented a global upskilling academy to address this skills gap head-on.
And the scale of this academy is staggering.
Yeah.
They trained 20,000 staff in just 2 years. They delivered over 6.1 million training hours.
It's incredible.
Training 20,000 staff, that's not just a budget item, that's an organizational earthquake.
Yeah.
How did they manage to achieve a 95% completion rate without mass resistance or resignations?
It was all managed through buy-in and a phased approach. The foundation was a mandatory digital literacy fundamentals course.
Mandatory for everyone.
For all 20,000 staff.
Yeah.
40 hours of training per person. And crucially, it achieved that 95% completion rate because it was positioned as necessary for everyone's job security in this new digital future. It established a common baseline.
So that was the foundational knowledge, the why and the what. But where did they see the highest direct business impact from the training?
That came from the specialized intensive courses. What's really noteworthy is the training that got the highest business impact rating of 4.7 out of 5 was the intensive process automation training.
Okay.
This was reserved for specialized staff and required 120 hours per person. It just shows that general literacy is necessary, but deep specialization is what really moves the needle on business metrics.
And to manage and guide that kind of massive effort, companies can't just guess where they stand. They need a framework. And that's where the digital maturity self-assessment tool becomes essential.
It provides a systematic, customized framework for pharma that evaluates readiness across 4 equally weighted critical dimensions: leadership, culture, technology, and workforce. Each one is 25% of the score.
I notice culture is 25%. That seems incredibly high for a scientific or operational assessment. Why is culture given the same weight as technology?
Because digital transformation fails if the organizational culture resists the change. A positive culture fosters the risk tolerance you need for agile development, it encourages transparency, and most importantly in pharma, it ensures staff are willing to adopt new GXP-compliant digital processes instead of just reverting to paper.
Right.
If the leadership isn't driving a culture of continuous learning, the tech investment just stalls.
That makes perfect sense. And to guide that specialized development, the ISPE Pharma 4.0 competency matrix provides these structured pathways.
Yes, it highlights crucial new roles tailored to this cross-functional environment, like the Quality 4.0 manager. This role requires critical competencies across all 4 domains of the framework: resources, information systems, organization and processes, and yes, culture.
Right back to culture.
It confirms that quality management is no longer siloed. It has to be digitally fluent and cross-functional.
Now let's turn our gaze firmly to the horizon. We're moving beyond today's challenges into the 3 converging technological frontiers that are going to fundamentally reshape drug development between, say, 2025 and 2035.
And we start with hyper-personalized manufacturing, which is driving what's called the distributed production revolution.
Okay.
The paradigm is shifting from these massive centralized factories to decentralized, localized point of care, or PAPOC, manufacturing, and it's largely driven by additive manufacturing 3D printing.
That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Tailor-made drugs produced on demand. And we are seeing that market shift reflected in the revenue data.
The numbers confirm it's way more than just a theory. Global revenue for 3D printed drugs is projected to nearly double, jumping from about $368 million in 2025 to $789 million by 2034.
Wow.
It's a clear trajectory, and the FDA is already showing real-world traction, having approved investigational new drug applications for 3D printed oral capsules like T20G and T22.
That's amazing. But the idea of a mini factory at the point of care sounds like a regulatory nightmare. How do you regulate quality control when the manufacturing site might be a local pharmacy?
That is the major hurdle. It requires new regulatory frameworks and quality management systems that are themselves decentralized and digitized. The regulatory bodies are racing to ensure that personalized production still adheres to GXP, which means the digital quality system running that 3D printer has to be unimpeachable.
Just like the AI systems we discussed earlier.
Exactly.
Next up is the technology that truly sounds like science fiction: quantum-accelerated drug discovery. This promises computational power that totally changes the R&D game.
This is where computational power meets chemistry at the molecular level, allowing simulations that were just impossible before.
Right.
Quantum computing allows for simulating complex molecular interactions at unprecedented speeds, up to 100 million times faster than classical supercomputers. This just cuts years off the research pipeline.
And the accuracy gains are just stunning, right? It's not just faster, it's better science.
Absolutely. Studies are showing quantum simulations achieving 99.9% accuracy when modeling these complex molecular interactions. That's compared to maybe 90% for classical methods in the same studies.
That accuracy gap, even if it sounds small, translates into enormous savings in physical testing later on.
It does, and it leads to this very bold prediction that by 2030, over 50% of newly developed drugs will be designed or at least heavily influenced by quantum computing.
50%.
It fundamentally accelerates the time and the cost of R&D by dramatically reducing the number of ineffective compounds you test in those early stages.
Finally, We turn to sustainable manufacturing, integrating net zero goals and the circular economy into production. This used to be a secondary concern, but now it seems like a core operational metric.
The industry is moving incredibly fast on this front. The pressure is huge from investors and regulators alike. Leading pharma companies have set these aggressive targets. By 2026, almost 90% of the energy they use will be renewable.
And that's not just about putting up solar
No.
panels. How does technology enable that change beyond just switching power sources?
AI plays a massive role, particularly in what's called green chemistry implementations. AI-driven predictive modeling is now used to redesign production processes to be inherently less wasteful. Using these models, companies can reduce hazardous waste by up to 40% in their production processes, supporting these circular economy models that focus on capturing and reusing finite resources. It just makes production inherently cleaner and more efficient.
What an incredible journey we've taken. From the immediate compliance deadlines of CSA validation and upskilling 20,000 staff, all the way to this radical vision of quantum design, 3D printed drugs delivered at the point of care.
Right.
So what's the single overarching lesson we have to take away about managing this relentless pace of change?
The key message from all the source material is crystal clear. The ultimate success of any digital transformation depends less on which technology you choose, whether it's AI or quantum computing, and far more on the leadership that guides the organization through constant perpetual change.
It's a human challenge,
It's about building a sustainable culture of resilience and adaptation.
and that requires continuous, patient-centered commitment at every single level.
Absolutely. Digital leadership in pharma is not about choosing a technology. It is about choosing to lead people through perpetual transformation. If you're listening to this, your continuous learning and your skill development, they are not optional. They're the only way to maintain both the necessary regulatory rigor and the fundamental patient-centered mission that defines this entire industry.